The massive hangar bay of the Galactic Defense Academy buzzed with activity as ships from across the known universe touched down. Iden Foster took a deep breath, steadying himself as the shuttle's doors hissed open. The air inside the station tasted metallic and unfamiliar, a stark reminder of just how far from home he truly was. As Iden stepped onto the polished floor, his eyes widened at the sheer diversity of alien life forms surrounding him. Towering insectoids with gleaming carapaces conversed in clicks and whistles with translucent, floating beings that seemed more light than matter. Reptilian humanoids with sails in every color imaginable strode purposefully past him, barely sparing the human a glance. A booming voice cut through the cacophony. Recruits. Assemble by species for processing and quarters assignment. Iden made his way to a small group of humans. There were only 5 of them in total. As they waited, he couldn't help but notice the curious and often disdainful looks thrown their way by the alien cadets. Look at how small and soft they are, a hulking four-armed being rumbled to its companion. I heard their planet's gravity is pathetic. They'll snap like twigs in real combat. Iden clenched his jaw but said nothing. He'd known this wouldn't be easy, but the reality of being so drastically outnumbered and outgunned was setting in fast. A slender, avian-like alien with iridescent feathers approached the human group. "I am Lieutenant Kirazin," she trilled. "I will be overseeing your integration into the academy. Follow me." As they walked through winding corridors, Kirazin's voice took on a cautionary tone. "I must warn you, many here doubt humanity's readiness for galactic warfare. You will face challenges, prove them wrong, and you may yet find your place among the stars." Their quarters was sparse but functional. Iden stowed his few belongings and changed into the standard-issue cadet uniform, a form-fitting bodysuit that adjusted uncomfortably to his frame. "All cadets report to Training Arena Alpha for initial assessments," a computerized voice announced. The arena was vast, with obstacle courses and simulation chambers stretching as far as the eye could see. Alien cadets of all shapes and sizes were already warming up, their movements fluid and powerful. A gruff voice caught Iden's attention. Well, if it isn't the Monkey Brigade." Iden turned to see a group of reptilian cadets, led by a particularly nasty-looking specimen with crimson scales and yellow eyes. "I'm Sergeant Drakthar," the alien sneered, "and you lot are in for a world of pain. This isn't some backwater planet you can bumble around on. This is war on a cosmic scale." Iden met Drakthar's gaze steadily. "We're here to learn, same as anyone else." Drakthar's laugh was like gravel in a blender. "Learn? You'll be lucky to survive the first week. I give you 3 days before you're crying to go home." Before Iden could respond, a piercing whistle silenced the arena. A holographic figure materialized in the center, a being of pure energy, its form constantly shifting and swirling. "I am Commandant Zix," the being's voice reverberated through their minds. "Your training begins now. You will be pushed beyond your limits, forged in the crucible of galactic conflict. Many of you will fail, some may not survive, but those who persevere will become the guardians of our shared cosmos." The commandant's gaze seemed to linger on the human contingent. "Strength comes in many forms. Do not be quick to judge based on appearance alone. Now, let us see what you're made of." With a gesture, the arena transformed. Holographic enemies materialized, obstacle courses reconfigured themselves, and chaos erupted as cadets scrambled to prove their worth. Iden dove into the fray, his heart pounding. He may not have had the raw strength or natural weaponry of his alien counterparts, but years of grueling preparation had honed his body and mind for this moment. As plasma bolts sizzled past his head and the ground shifted beneath his feet, Iden allowed himself a grim smile. They thought humans were weak, obsolete, unworthy of standing among the stars. He was about to prove them very, very wrong. Weeks blurred into months as the rigorous training at the Galactic Defense Academy pushed every cadet to their limits. For Iden Foster, Each day was a battle not just against the grueling exercises and simulations, but against the constant undercurrent of doubt from his alien peers. The physical challenges were brutal. In the high-gravity combat arena, Aiden's muscles screamed as he struggled to move with the same agility he possessed on Earth. Drakthar and his cronies never missed an opportunity to mock the humans' struggles. "Look at them flailing about," Drakthar sneered during a particularly intense session, "like fish out of water." But Aiden refused to give up. He spent every free moment in the gym, pushing his body to adapt to the harsh conditions. Slowly, painfully, he began to see progress. It was during a tactical simulation that Aiden first showed signs of turning the tide. The scenario: defend a colony against a surprise attack with limited resources. While the alien cadets relied on brute force and advanced weaponry, Aiden took a different approach. He analyzed the terrain, set up clever ambushes, and used the environment to his advantage. When the dust settled, Aiden's team had suffered the fewest casualties and held the most ground. Lieutenant Karazin's eyes gleamed with approval. "An impressive display of strategy, Cadet Foster. Perhaps there's hope for you yet." Drakthar, however, was less than pleased. "Luck," he spat. "In a real battle, your frail bones would snap like twigs." The next challenge came in the form of xenobiology studies. Cadets were expected to memorize the physiologies and weaknesses of countless alien species. Here, Aiden's quick mind and adaptable human learning capabilities began to shine. During one particularly tense exam, Aiden correctly identified the vulnerable spots on a Zorgax beast, a feat that even some of the more advanced species struggled with. The look of shock on Drakthar's face was almost worth all the hardship. But it was in the realm of problem-solving that Aiden truly began to turn heads. The Academy's elite engineering course presented the cadets with a series of increasingly complex puzzles and malfunctioning systems to repair. Aiden's human creativity and outside-the-box thinking allowed him to find solutions that baffled his alien counterparts. He jerry-rigged plasma conduits, reprogrammed stubborn AAs, and even managed to hotwire a derelict starfighter using nothing but scrap parts. Professor Axilovics, a multi-limbed genius responsible for much of the Academy's tech, took notice. "Fascinating," they chittered, peering at Aiden's latest contraption. "Your species' capacity for improvisation is unexpected." As Aiden's successes mounted, the attitude towards him began to shift. Some alien cadets, impressed by his tenacity and ingenuity, started to seek him out for study sessions or tactical advice. Others, like Drakthar, only intensified their hostility. It all came to a head during the dreaded Omega trial, a holographic wargame that pushed cadets to their absolute limits. Teams were thrown into chaotic, ever-changing battle scenarios that tested every skill they'd learned. Aiden found himself leading a squad of mixed species, including a reluctant Drakthar. As plasma fire rained down and holographic enemies swarmed their position, Aiden's mind raced, piecing together a plan. "Drakthar, I need your strength for this to work," Aiden shouted over the din of battle. "Can you punch through that barrier?" The reptilian cadet hesitated, conflict clear in his yellow eyes. But as another explosion rocked their shelter, he nodded grimly. "Just this once, human. Don't make me regret it." What followed was a symphony of coordinated chaos. Aiden's unorthodox tactics, combined with the unique abilities of each squad member, allowed them to turn the tide of the simulated battle. They achieved victory against seemingly impossible odds. As the holograms faded and the lights came up, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then, to Aiden's shock, Drakthar let out a booming laugh and clapped him on the back, nearly knocking the wind out of him. "Perhaps you're not entirely useless after all, Foster," the reptilian cadet admitted grudgingly. Commandant Zick's energy form pulsed with what might have been approval. "An exemplary display of leadership and adaptability, Cadet Foster. It seems humanity may have more to offer than we initially believed." As Aiden caught his breath, he realized something had fundamentally shifted. He'd earned a measure of respect, not by trying to be like the aliens, but by embracing his human qualities and proving their worth. The battle for acceptance was far from over, but Aiden Foster had just won a crucial victory. As he looked around at his fellow cadets, both human and alien, he felt a spark of hope. Perhaps humanity did have a place among the stars after all. Little did any of them know, a far greater challenge loomed on the horizon, one that would put everything they'd learned to the ultimate test. The mood at the Galactic Defense Academy shifted dramatically one fateful morning. Alarms blared through the station, jolting cadets from their sleep cycles. Aiden Foster sprinted to the central briefing room alongside a sea of confused alien faces. Commandant Zick's energy form crackled with tension as the cadets assembled. "We've received a distress signal from the Helios outpost in the Andromeda sector. All communication has been lost, and long-range scans show anomalies." Hushed whispers rippled through the crowd. The Helios outpost was one of the most heavily fortified installations in known space. For it to go dark was unprecedented. "We're deploying a reconnaissance team immediately," Zix continued. "This is not a drill. The fate of countless lives may hang in the balance." To Aiden's surprise, he found himself among those selected for the mission. As they boarded the sleek reconnaissance vessel, he caught Drakfar's eye. The reptilian cadet nodded grimly, their rivalry temporarily set aside in the face of a greater threat. The journey to Helios was tense. Lieutenant Kirazin briefed the team on the outpost's defenses and the latest intelligence. Whatever overwhelmed their systems did so with terrifying speed. She trilled, her feathers ruffling with concern. As they dropped out of hyperspace near Helios, collective gasps filled the bridge. The massive space station hung lifeless against the backdrop of swirling nebulae, but it was what surrounded the outpost that chilled Aiden to his core. Thousands of crystalline structures, each the size of a small moon, formed a glittering web around Helios. They pulsed with an otherworldly energy that seemed to distort the very fabric of space-time. "By the cosmic egg," Drakfar breathed. "What are those things?" Before anyone could respond, the ship's systems went haywire. Alarms blared as displays flickered and died. Aiden's mind raced, recalling the countless hours he'd spent studying alien tech. "It's some kind of energy field," he shouted. "It's disrupting our power systems." As the ship began to drift, pulled inexorably towards the crystalline structures, panic set in. Alien cadets with far more experience than Aiden found themselves at a loss. But something clicked in Aiden's mind. The erratic energy readings, the way the crystals pulsed in sync, it all reminded him of an obscure theory he'd stumbled upon during his late-night study sessions. "I think I know what these are," Aiden said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "They're quantum resonance amplifiers, theoretical technology capable of manipulating subspace." Karazin's eyes widened. "But that's impossible. No known species has mastered such technology." "Exactly," Aiden replied grimly. "We're dealing with something entirely new." As the ship drifted closer to the crystal field, Aiden's mind worked overtime. He remembered an old Earth technique for dealing with electromagnetic interference, a Faraday cage. "We need to reroute all power to the ship's outer hull," Aiden shouted. "Create an electromagnetic barrier." Drakthar looked at him like he'd gone mad. "That's insane. We'll be defenseless." "Trust me," Aiden pleaded. "It's our only shot." With no other options, the team sprang into action. Aiden directed them, drawing on every scrap of knowledge he'd accumulated about the ship's systems. As they neared the crystal field, Aiden held his breath. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, miraculously, the ship stabilized. They drifted through the field unharmed, the crystal's energy washing harmlessly over their improvised shield. "Impossible," Kirazin whispered, her feathers trembling. As they approached Helios, the true extent of the situation became clear. The outpost had been completely overtaken by the crystalline structures. And at the heart of it all, a massive entity pulsed with unimaginable power. "It's alive," Drakthar said, his usual bravado replaced by awe and fear. Aiden's mind raced. The entity seemed to be using Helios as a focal point, channeling energy through the quantum resonance amplifiers. But for what purpose? As they watched, space itself began to warp and tear around the station. A chilling realization struck Aiden. This wasn't an invasion. It was the beginning of a cataclysm that could reshape the very fabric of the universe. "We need to get this information back to the Academy," Kirazin said urgently. "The entire galaxy needs to be warned." But as they turned to leave, the entity seemed to notice them. A pulse of energy lashed out, narrowly missing their ship. "It knows we're here," Aiden said, his voice tight. "And I don't think it's going to let us leave." As the team looked to him, human and alien alike, Aiden felt the weight of the moment. Everything he'd learned, every challenge he'd faced, had led to this. Humanity's place in the galactic community now hinged on what he did next. With a deep breath, Aiden Foster prepared to face the greatest threat the universe had ever known. The real test was just beginning. The reconnaissance ship shuddered as another energy pulse from the crystal entity narrowly missed them. Aiden Foster's mind raced, analyzing every scrap of data they gathered about this unprecedented threat. "We can't outrun it," Kirazin said, her usual calm demeanor cracking under the strain. "Our engines are barely functioning after passing through that energy field." Drakthar growled in frustration. "Then we fight. Better to die in battle than flee like cowards." But Aiden shook his head. "No, wait. I think I have an idea." All eyes turned to the human cadet. In that moment, the skepticism and mockery that had dogged Aiden since his arrival at the Academy seemed to evaporate. They were out of options, and Aiden's unconventional thinking had already saved them once. "The entity is using Helios as a focal point," Aiden explained quickly. "If we can disrupt that connection, we might be able to destabilize the whole system." Karazin's feathers ruffled with interest. "How do you propose we do that?" Aiden took a deep breath. "We need to get back to Helios. If we can overload the station's main reactor, the energy surge should create enough interference to break the entity's hold, at least temporarily." "That's suicide," Drakthar exclaimed. "We'd never make it off the station in time." "Not if we use the ship as a delivery system," Aiden countered. "We set the reactor to overload, then use the ship's remaining power to create a short-range wormhole. We beam ourselves out at the last second." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. What Aiden was proposing was dangerous, borderline insane. But as another energy pulse rocked the ship, they all knew it might be their only chance. Kirazin was the first to speak. "It's risky, but it just might work. However, someone will need to stay behind to manually initiate the overload. The station's systems are too damaged for remote activation." Before anyone else could volunteer, Aiden stepped forward. "I'll do it." Protests erupted from his teammates, but Aiden held up a hand. "I'm the only one who fully understands the plan, and let's face it, I'm the most expendable member of this team." Drakthar's yellow eyes narrowed. "You're many things, Foster. Annoying, fragile, occasionally clever. But expendable isn't one of them." The sincerity in the reptilian cadet's voice caught Aiden off guard. He managed a small smile. Was that almost a compliment? "Don't let it go to your head," Drakthar grumbled. With the plan set, the team sprang into action. They maneuvered the battered ship back towards Helios, using Aiden's electromagnetic shielding technique to slip past the crystal field once more. As they approached the airlock, Kirazin pulled Aiden aside. "What you're doing is incredibly brave, Cadet Foster. You've proven that humanity has much to offer the galaxy." Aiden nodded, throat tight with emotion. "Just make sure our findings get back to the Academy. The entire universe needs to be prepared for what's coming." The team split up, Aiden heading for the reactor core, while the others prepared the ship for emergency wormhole generation. As Aiden navigated the eerily silent corridors of Helios, he couldn't help but reflect on his journey. He'd come to the academy an outsider, mocked and underestimated. Now, the fate of the galaxy rested on his shoulders. The irony wasn't lost on him. Reaching the reactor core, Aiden set to work. His fingers flew over alien controls, drawing on every scrap of knowledge he'd absorbed during his time at the academy. Warning klaxons blared as he initiated the overload sequence. Foster, status report. Kerezin's voice crackled over the comm. Overload in progress, Aiden replied, sweat beading on his forehead. You should be seeing energy fluctuations any moment now. As if on cue, the crystal entity outside emitted a deafening shriek that reverberated through the station. The plan was working. Its hold on Helios was weakening. Wormhole generator powered up, Drakthar reported. Foster, get your scrawny human hide back here now. Aiden sprinted through the corridors, heart pounding. The station groaned and shuddered around him as the reactor approached critical mass. He could see the airlock ahead, his teammates anxiously waiting. Just as he reached the threshold, a massive tremor shook the station. Aiden lost his footing, tumbling backwards as debris rained down. Foster. Drakthar's voice was filled with genuine concern. Aiden looked up to see a wall of energy rushing towards him. The reactor overload had begun. In that split second, he made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. Go, he shouted. Complete the mission. The last thing Aiden saw was the horrified faces of his teammates as the wormhole engulfed them. Then the world exploded in a blinding flash of light. As consciousness faded, Aiden allowed himself a small smile. He might not have lived to see it, but he knew. Humanity had finally proven its worth among the stars. The blinding flash faded, and Aiden Foster found himself still alive, floating in a sea of swirling energy. Time and space seemed to bend around him as the reactor's explosion interacted with the crystal entity's otherworldly power. In that moment of cosmic chaos, Aiden experienced flashes of insight, glimpses into the very nature of the universe and the entity they faced. He saw countless worlds, entire civilizations rising and falling in the blink of an eye. And he understood. The entity wasn't malevolent, it was curious. Ancient beyond comprehension, it explored the cosmos by absorbing and recreating entire realities. Helios was to be the seed of a new universe, born from the ashes of their own. With a jolt, Aiden snapped back to reality. He was still on Helios, the station miraculously intact thanks to the space-time distortions. But now he had knowledge and a plan. Meanwhile, the wormholes spat out Kerezin, Drakthar, and the rest of the team in the heart of the Galactic Defense Academy. Alarms blared as they materialized in the Central Command Center. Report. Commandant Zik's energy form crackled with urgency. Through tears of frustration and grief, Kerezin recounted their mission and Aiden's apparent sacrifice. The mood in the room was somber, but there was no time to mourn. We need to mount a defense, Drakthar growled, for Foster's sake, if nothing else. As the Academy mobilized its forces, a familiar voice crackled over the comms. This is Cadet Aiden Foster. Does anyone copy? The command center erupted in shocked exclamations. Drakthar was the first to respond, his usual gruffness replaced by genuine relief. Foster, how in the 7 moons are you still alive? Hagen's laughter came through the static. Long story. But listen, I know what we're dealing with and how to stop it. I need you to trust me one more time. What followed was the most unorthodox battle plan the Galactic Defense Academy had ever seen. Aiden, armed with his newfound cosmic understanding, directed the fleet not to attack the crystal entity, but to communicate with it. We need to show it the value of our reality, Aiden explained. Not just our technology or our weapons, but our cultures, our art, our capacity for growth and change. The plan was met with skepticism, but Aiden's track record of impossible successes won out. As the entity's influence spread, threatening to engulf more star systems, the combined fleet of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations approached. But Instead of opening fire, they began broadcasting. Music from 1,000 worlds filled the cosmos. Images of natural wonders, artistic masterpieces, and everyday moments of beauty and connection flooded every frequency. Aiden, still trapped on Helios at the heart of the anomaly, acted as a conduit. He felt the entity's confusion, then its growing curiosity. The battle raged not with weapons, but with ideas. Every species contributed, showcasing the rich tapestry of galactic civilization. Humans, so new to the cosmic stage, found their voice among the chorus. As the entity absorbed this outpouring of culture and creativity, its destructive expansion slowed. The crystals began to pulse with new colors, resonating with the harmony of life rather than the cold logic of cosmic reconstruction. Aiden felt the shift in the entity's vast consciousness. It had encountered something new, something it couldn't simply absorb and recreate. The diversity and unpredictability of organic life had given it pause. With a flash of inspiration, Aiden made a final plea. He offered the entity a choice: to join them as a participant in the grand experiment of life, rather than as an impartial observer remaking reality in its image. For a moment that stretched into eternity, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Then, slowly, the crystal structures began to recede, the space-time distortions stabilized, and a new form coalesced before the assembled fleet. The entity had chosen to manifest in a form they could comprehend, a swirling vortex of energy and possibility. Its voice, when it spoke, resonated in the minds of all present. "We accept," it intoned. "Your reality is intriguing. We would learn." As the immediate threat subsided, the full impact of what had transpired began to sink in. The galaxy had faced its greatest challenge not through force of arms, but through the power of unity and cultural exchange. And at the heart of it all stood Aiden Foster, the human cadet who had gone from laughingstock to savior of the cosmos. As rescue ships approached Helios to retrieve him, Aiden looked out at the vast expanse of space, forever changed by this encounter. He smiled, knowing that humanity had not only found its place among the stars, but had played a crucial role in reshaping the very nature of cosmic interaction. The battle was over, but a new chapter in galactic history was just beginning. The days following the cosmic encounter were a whirlwind of activity across the galaxy. As news of the averted catastrophe spread, the name Aiden Foster became synonymous with hope and unity. The human cadet who had orchestrated the most unconventional victory in galactic history was now at the center of a transformative moment for all sentient life. Aiden's return to the Galactic Defense Academy was met with a hero's welcome. As he stepped off the rescue ship, still wary from his ordeal, he was engulfed in a sea of allies, human and alien alike. Drakthar was the first to reach him, enveloping Aiden in a bone-crushing hug that belied the reptilian's usual gruff demeanor. "Don't you ever pull a stunt like that again," Drakthar growled, his eyes suspiciously moist. Aiden managed a weak laugh. "Wouldn't dream of it." Commandant Zik's energy form pulsed with what could only be described as pride. "Cadet Foster, your actions have reshaped our understanding of galactic diplomacy and conflict resolution. The Academy, no, the entire United Galaxy, owes you a debt of gratitude." But even as accolades poured in, Aiden knew that their work was far from over. The entity, now referred to as the Cosmic Envoy, had chosen to learn and interact rather than remake reality. This presented both unprecedented opportunities and unique challenges. In the weeks that followed, Aiden found himself at the forefront of a new initiative. The Galactic Defense Academy expanded its curriculum, placing greater emphasis on cultural exchange, creative problem-solving, and interspecies cooperation. Aiden's unorthodox tactics became case studies, taught alongside traditional combat strategies. The human contingent at the Academy grew as word of Aiden's accomplishments spread back to Earth. Humanity, once seen as a primitive species barely worth notice, was now viewed as a valuable contributor to galactic society. Aiden watched with a mixture of pride and amusement as human traits once mocked, adaptability, creativity, and a penchant for thinking outside the box, became highly sought-after skills. Alien cadets clamored to partner with humans in training exercises, eager to learn their unique perspective. But it wasn't just the academy that changed. Across the galaxy, the ripple effects of the encounter with the cosmic envoy were felt. Species that had been locked in centuries-old conflicts found common ground in their shared experience. The arts flourished as never before, inspired by the knowledge that creativity itself had saved reality. The cosmic envoy, true to its word, became an active participant in galactic affairs. Its vast knowledge and unique perspective helped solve problems that had once seemed insurmountable. From curing diseases to unlocking the secrets of faster-than-light travel, the galaxy entered a new golden age of discovery and cooperation. Aiden, for his part, struggled to reconcile his newfound fame with his desire to continue learning and growing. He found solace in quiet moments with friends like Drakthar and Kirazin, who treated him no differently than before. During one such moment, as they sat watching the swirling nebulae from the Academy's observation deck, Drakthar turned to Aiden with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Foster," he said, "when you first arrived, I thought humans were the galaxy's biggest joke. Soft, weak, hopelessly outmatched." Aiden raised an eyebrow. "And now?" Drakthar's mouth curled into what passed for a smile among his species. "Now I think the joke was on us all along. Your kind sees the universe in a way the rest of us had forgotten. You remind us what it means to be truly alive." As if to punctuate Drakthar's words, a shimmering tendril of energy, a manifestation of the cosmic envoy, weaved through the stars outside. It was a constant reminder of how close they had come to oblivion and how an unexpected solution had changed everything. Aiden leaned back, a contented smile on his face. "We've all got a lot to learn from each other," he said. "That's the beauty of it, isn't it? The galaxy's big enough for all of us, with room to grow." As they sat there, human and alien united in friendship, Aiden reflected on his journey. From a mocked outsider to a catalyst for galactic change, he had discovered that humanity's greatest strength lay not in dominating the cosmos, but in helping to weave the rich tapestry of universal cooperation. The future stretched out before them, filled with challenges and wonders yet unimagined. But whatever came next, Aiden knew that the united galaxy would face it together, human and alien, flesh and energy, all part of the grand, beautiful experiment of life among the stars. As the first human to truly make his mark on galactic history, Aiden Foster had not only secured humanity's place in the cosmic community, but had helped reshape the very nature of that community itself. The era of isolation and suspicion was over. A new age of unity, creativity, and endless possibility had dawned. And it all began because the alien recruits mocked the human recruit, never knowing what he would do when the true test came.